welcome to our September 3rd Board of School Trustees meeting. If we could all face the flag and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Trustee Blake King.
We're here.
Trustee Candelaria.
Present.
Ramala.
Present.
Trustee Miller.
Present.
Please let the record reflect we have all 5 trustees and the superintendent of schools in attendance this evening. Superintendent Miller.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to those watching online. Our first order of business is a presentation from the Hammond Education Foundation, their annual update. I'd like to call to the mic Josh Long.
And Wes Lukosius, too.
And Wes.
So today we're going to give our annual blueprint update, and then at a subsequent meeting we'll do an HEF update. I was putting it together and I realized if I did it all at once it would be a half hour, so I don't want to stay up here for a half hour. Ahead of the meeting I did submit a couple of reports to you. We submitted our data report, which you should have somewhere. I don't know how it works. I do have some copies here if you want it afterward. And then I also have an overview as well, which I put into a PowerPoint presentation. And so the blueprint is a college readiness initiative, the Hammond Education Foundation and School City of Hammond. If you could go to the next slide, please. And our mission statement is building a path to college and fostering a culture of success. The next one, please. We have some new school board members, and obviously people in the audience who may not know the program, so I just wanted to go over briefly what the program is. And Blueprint is a college access and success program within the school city of Hammond. The program helps academically qualified high school seniors and juniors in some schools effectively navigate through the often daunting process of transitioning into higher education by ultimately providing a blueprint for success, leading to a college degree and career fulfillment. The program originated in late 2015 after a generous college scholarship offered by a prominent Hammond High alumnus attracted negligible follow-up by graduating seniors, in addition to additional student stories of post-secondary unpreparedness. So in 2015 was my first year with HEF. And we have a donor, Rudy Chappa and his wife, who generously give a scholarship every year. And in that first year, we only had one application from Hammond High for it. For the scholarship, and from that we sort of pulled the layers back and developed the blueprint out of that original situation. In this most recent 2018-2019 school year, we supported 142 students across 4 Hammond Public High Schools and the area Career Center University, so 5 sites. And in addition, this past year we supported 3 classes of college students. And the Blueprint is the only program of its kind in Northwest Indiana, and it is believed the state of Indiana, though probably not for long, which I'll get to in a bit. If we can go to the next slide, please. So, in our vision for the program, we have 3 levels of support. The first one is college readiness. So we provide the training and tools to create college relevance for our students. We work to equip students with the skills and resources to find and get into their best fit college. This is the in-class support. And so we have teachers at all 4 high schools and our area Career Center University that are trained to teach college readiness. And so that's everything from how to properly ask for a letter of recommendation to how to fill out an application to how to write your best personal statement, as well as finding as much money as you can to go to college. Access, so we track, mentor, and engage with our students while they're in college to mitigate the risk of dropping out before graduation. And so the program doesn't end with high school graduation. We put a ton of resources into visiting our students on campus and providing them as much support as possible. So I'm just going to turn it over to Wes briefly to talk about that because he sort of leads that for us.
Thank you, Josh, and good evening. The access component we find is especially important because young people who go on to college transition at different paces in different ways. And so it's important for us to be able to track as early as possible in their college career how they're doing, what challenges they're experiencing. Given the resources that we have, we found that the best way to do that is to track students who are freshmen. All of the data, or much of the data in higher education, suggests that the best way for a college freshman to move on is, the best way for a college freshman to graduate is to become a college sophomore. And so we try to meet with them as freshmen on their college campuses, determine how they're doing, what issues they're facing, and then try to mentor them or encourage them to use the resources available either on their campus or through the means that they've learned through the Blueprint experience in high school, as well as through ourselves. And we'd like to visit them more, but we do track especially those who we find are challenged in some ways and make a point to get back to them.
And I think the other thing to note about the readiness and access piece is I applied for college 11 or 12 years ago now, and even in that short amount of time, the process has become wildly more competitive and wildly more confusing. And so the one-on-one support that our teachers are able to provide by lowering that sort of college counselor to student ratio is super important. One small example is FAFSA is obviously a really confusing process, and it's a really confusing process for especially our disadvantaged students, which we know there are a lot of. And one thing that happens, which is awful, is if your FAFSA comes back and says that you can't afford college, so the government's going to help you. What happens is the government says, well, we want to give as little as possible, so we're going to do something called verification, which essentially means they go back to the student who shouldn't have to pay anything and say, now you have to submit all these other documents, you have to make all these other phone calls, you have to do all of this other stuff to prove that you are low income or poor. And what we found is that that process then becomes even way more confusing. And so with the ratio that we have, which in the MOU, which will be later is 30-1, our teachers are able to individually work with students and parents to make sure that that verification process goes through correctly. And that's just one small thing. The last piece, which is success, as the graduation pathways come through, we also realize that college graduation often isn't enough. What we want to do is support our students through college so that they can come back to Hammond, come back to the area, and be productive members of society. And so one thing that we are working toward this year is connecting students to local employers in order to help them gain internships, job skills, and key contacts necessary to succeed after college graduation. And I'll get a little bit more into who we're partnering with to make that happen at the end of the presentation. Go to the next one. So a little bit into our data. So 30.7%. Using our data in the Higher Education Research Institute's expected graduation rate calculator, we predict that 30.7% of the class of 2018-2019 Blueprint students will graduate in 4 years, 50.8% in 5, and 57.6% in 6. The reason we put this up here, it's obviously a really low number and looks awful on the surface, is because this is based on national data. And what we want to say is, if they're predicting 30.7% of those top students that are Blueprint students are going to graduate, well, we're going to prove them wrong, and we're going to prove them wrong by providing them the support that we think they need. And so we've had some success with our current college students. Every year we've had a freshman to sophomore retention rate of just over 80%, which puts our students on way more likely chance of beating that number. And when we talk to Purdue Northwest and other colleges, they're pretty astounded by it in general. And a lot of that has to do with the Blueprint, of course, but it also has to do with having wonderful Hammond students, teachers, staff, etc. A couple more pieces of data here. For our 2018-2019 beta class, they're called the beta class, we had $3.5 million awarded to Blueprint students for the 2019-2020 financial aid year. And so that's just for freshman year, so you can multiply that by 4 to get the total amount, assuming that they graduate in 4 years. That is the highest number we've ever had per student. I think it's right around I can't do the math in my head, but it's around $28,000 per student per year, which is the highest we've had. And I sort of did a brief glance at other school districts and what they're putting out per school. And for the 140 students that we have, it's a pretty high number. We also had 1,200 plus submitted college applications, or an average of 8 submitted applications per Blueprint student. This is also, if you just look at it, they applied to 8 colleges. However, that number has been increasing for our cohorts. I think the first year it was 5, the next year it was 6. We're aiming for 10. Best practice says you need to be between 10 and 12 college applications. A couple of reach schools that you might not get into, a ton of match schools, and then a couple of safety schools. So we're pushing that up as high as we can. And then a couple other things. For our Blueprint students, the average SAT score was 1,077, which is below the Indiana average of 1,086 and above the national average of 1,066. In the longer report, there's a lot more information about the demographic makeup of the SAT and how that sort of presented itself. But on the surface, we don't think this is that great, especially because the Blueprint skews toward our best students, right? So theoretically, we should probably be 100 points higher for our Blueprint students. And then the next side, 41% of students met the average SAT score for their major. So the majority of our Blueprint students are going into health professional STEM careers. And if you look at the average SAT score for those majors, only 41% of our Blueprint students hit that average. And so I don't think that says anything about our students other than it is one indicator that they are not as prepared for STEM majors as they could be. And so looking forward, so for this year, we have obviously 142 students in college, freshmen, about 125 as sophomores, about 38 as juniors, and about 10 as seniors. So we have a ton of students that we're supporting. Our focus is on the freshman year of college. A couple things we found, the vast majority of our students are going to in-state public universities, so over 80%, with the number 1 school being IU Bloomington. And the reason that is because IU Bloomington has a program called Groups, where if you get into it, it's a full ride, and as soon as you graduate high school, they pull you in. They really love the Blueprint program, and so they've taken, I think, 18 of our students, and then we have another 10 to 11 that are headed down there. Because we have such a concentration there, we have a Blueprint student who's an upperclassman at IU who is meeting with them regularly, and we're paying her a stipend to do that so that they have someone to check in with, and they're building a culture on campus. She's also checking in with their IUPUI and Purdue students. For the rest of our students, Wes and I have a very busy travel schedule for the fall, and we have a hope to visit every student that is in the state of Indiana and then do multiple checks with students that are out of the state of Indiana. One thing we realized this year is that we weren't doing enough in the way of data and research, and so we are working right now, and I'll turn it over to Wes for this, but we're working with Purdue Northwest so that they can do a study on the program and its effectiveness. Anything to say about that, Wes?
Yes, just briefly, we're working with the Purdue Northwest School of Education, some of its professors, to help us validate the success data that we think is occurring, but we can't say for sure. So we're utilizing their professional expertise. Hopefully they'll be able to get to us and be able to follow up with those students who are beyond the freshman year, so that we have a better idea of the matriculation of all of the students who have graduated from the high school Blueprint component and are working their way through toward a baccalaureate degree.
So statewide recognition, this summer I've met with the IDOE, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, and the Independent Colleges of Indiana, which is the private school equivalent of that. And they were so impressed with the program that they've started floating our name around to other districts to be a resource for them. And so for a while we were the only program like this in Indiana, but soon we probably won't be. And I think that's a testament to the work our teachers and staff have put in. We'll be working all throughout this year to develop an intern program with the North Township Trustee's Office, and that will be for Blueprint students that are in high school, so the incoming senior class. And what we hope is that they are paid internships with employers that hope to then bring them back to Northwest Indiana, bring them back to Hammond when they graduate college. And so we're looking at a program of 20 to 25 students. Right now, we're looking at 4 days a week with an additional day of the sort of work readiness skills that employers say are necessary to be successful in a job. And then the last thing I want to mention is we've been really lucky to have incredible teachers. But one thing I did want to note is we lost our 2 original Blueprint teachers. Nate Four took a job at Clark, and Alyssa Royer from Gavitt took a job in Chicago. And one thing I just want to note about that, and I'm sure you've heard a ton about losing teachers, but as other districts are noting and noticing what we're doing with the Blueprint as far as college access is concerned, and we are training our teachers to have those skills, I think they're going to start getting poached for those skills specifically. When I think about the Gavitt teacher, she got hired at a high school in Chicago specifically to teach a class that looks incredibly similar to the Blueprint full-time. And so I just wanted to note that to the school board, that I think that will probably continue to happen. So just to end on a positive note, we've worked really hard for this program the last 5 years. The students tend to love it, our teachers tend to love it, and it's a program that we feel we've really been able to have an impact in the school city of Hammond. And so I thank you for the support in that program. I hope that the contract and the MOU go through today, of course. But we're going to continue to work on college access for our students, and hope to keep improving. And I can take any questions. That was longer than I thought. You can ask questions now, or you can submit questions to me via email or anything else.
Thank you. It's an outstanding program that you're doing for our students. Any questions?
Yes, can't find my pen. What is your biggest hindrance, in getting this program to where you want it to be?
I think the easiest answer, and I think the right answer, is resources. We are not a very big nonprofit, of course, and so it's just Wes and I running sort of overseeing the program. And then from the school city side, you guys have been gracious in having a Fulcrum contract, or Fulcrum, the company, come in and help our teachers. But when I look to other districts, especially the wealthier districts, and what they are planning to do for the pathways, right? They're looking at, some districts are looking at hiring full-time folks in each high school to sort of tackle this problem, right? And so we see all the things that we could be doing better, but we also don't know how to get there because we don't have the manpower to do so.
So, exactly how much are we putting into this program, Mr. Miller, financially, money?
Well, our commitment is that current teachers for us, we identify them as Blueprint teachers, and then they're teaching 1 or 2 periods out of their day. Instead of teaching English or math, they're teaching that subject. So it would vary per teacher. I don't have the exact number, but that's essentially it. We're paying for their periods to teach Blueprint.
And then the instructional support to them,
Yep.
especially for the newer ones that maybe don't have it. And we've been pretty flexible about how School City wants to approach that. So,
What I fear moving forward, with this being such a unique program, we're going to lose Josh. We're going to lose you to some bigger or better district, because this is so unique. And you're doing so much with, differently with our young folks in terms of their career paths and getting them into college. So we need to help them find some money. You need a corporate sponsor. You need some funding, because we need more students to be involved in this program. Career path, that's the way to go. And we really should start at elementary school. Not that we're not, but to a bigger degree, talking about career paths. And I applaud you for what you do, but I know with more funding and support from us, you could do much more for our children, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Josh, do you want to perhaps speak just quickly about the changes to the MOU and just some of the things we're looking to do moving forward?
Sure. So the MOU is, I don't know what section of the school board agenda it's on.
It's item G.
Yeah. So we realize that School City obviously has a funding problem. And so Wes and I worked with Scott and Terry and Esther to figure out a way to make it a little bit more affordable. And so we've done that by taking out the financial requirements of what School City put in. There used to be a hard number. So I think that's the biggest one. I think the other one is School City has hired can you tell me what the exact title is?
He's referring to the College and Career Readiness Coordinator, Dr. Rushing, who her work is going to be through the Lilly Grant, but it actually supports a lot of the things, Trustee King, you were just saying, K-12 career integration.
Yeah, and I think the most exciting thing about that change, so in the MOU, a lot of our sort of reporting now will go through Dr. Rushing first via meetings and data and so forth. But I think the most exciting thing is that there is a person now or an office now that is in charge of overseeing that for the district and for us. And so I hope that sort of smoothens out communication. But I hope it also leads to a more I guess, a strategic plan for what college and career readiness looks like for the School City of Hammond. Because I feel like we've done a lot with the blueprint, but I feel like there's more we could do if School City and HEF were a little bit more aligned. And I think with her being in that position, that's a start to being on the right path.
Anything else? Thank you
Thank you,
very
Josh.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh and Wes.
Thank you.
All right, next I'd like to call up Scott Cherry from Skillman Corporation to give the monthly update on the new building.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. To give you a little update here. There we go. You have the report, I believe, in your packet. We start out with the table of contents and the key plan that indicates the certain areas of the building that we're talking about for reference. And to talk about some of the progress over the last, from the last school board meeting to today. We've continued work on the site and paved the south parking lot. We completed the foundations for the radius wall in the administrative area, which is Unit C on your key. From a structural standpoint, we finished erecting steel in the main gymnasium. We're doing some of the underground plumbing and electrical in the cafeteria area. Started some exterior metal stud framing at the south academic wings. We're installing face brick on the south side of the school. And finished installing the decking over the pool area. In cafeteria, the concrete slab on grade was poured. In the interiors, we started some of the overhead mechanical, electrical, and plumbing and the ductwork at the south academic wing. A couple of photos. Here you see the steel erection at the administrative area. It's the radius front. The foundation has been poured and the steel is being erected. Hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll see that steel being filled in with metal decking. When we talk about the metal studs at the academic wings, this is the south academic wings. These are the metal studs that we're talking about. And then some of the brick veneer you could see going up throughout the building, and that's at the auxiliary gym. In this area, the structural steel, the structural steel in these areas that's being erected in the gymnasium area. And then looking ahead, all that being said, we're going to continue installing the exterior sheeting on the south academic wing. That was the area where I showed the metal studs. We'll continue installing the face brick on exterior walls around the cafeteria and throughout the building as the areas open up. We'll begin the underground plumbing for the main gymnasium. We're going to continue erecting interior masonry walls, particularly in the music and band area. We'll start roofing at the south academic wing, start decking for the main gymnasium, and continue erecting steel for the radius administrative area. In the interior, we'll begin interior metal studs and masonry walls for the south academic wing, continue to install ductwork at the south academic wing, and continue the hydronic piping and other mechanical and electrical work in that area. The goal, of course, is to try and get the building enclosed as quick as we can in anticipation of the winter, and we're looking real good in that aspect. Any questions on the schedule?
Do you have the diversity manpower part of this?
I do. We're going to go to that right now.
I mean, the actual numbers. Just what I'm looking at, the diversity manpower, do you have that?
I do.
You want to share that, sir?
Yeah. If I could start here, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, what we've done is take a daily count for the month, and we're averaging about 26% minorities and working on the job, and about 10% in the Hammond residents. What these show is each week, the actual numbers and representation from each company that's working on the site for that week. As we've mentioned in the past, each week and day to day, those numbers go up and down. For pouring concrete, for example, we may have more finishers on the job, which is more manpower. They're there for a day, and they would leave maybe and come back a week later. So that's why we're doing the daily count. As you can see, that's each day since the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And here is our summary of all those days combined. So when you look at the percents and the average for the month of August, these are the numbers that we have. And we certainly would continue to work on that. I think we hope on the next report that those numbers are going to be going up. I think, David, we've had up more by 2%.
You have a what?
We're up about 2% more on the minority side, so we continue to keep monitoring that. And I think more and more as some contractors come on site, we'll have the opportunity to continue to improve. That's our goal.
I see you're void of any women, so we don't have any women on the site now, as opposed to the 19 or 16 or what have you. But it's not in your report here, sir. You don't have women. I don't see it. I could be missing it. I see white, black, Hispanic, Hammond residents. I don't see women.
Right.
I could be wrong.
We'll get that. We apologize for that error. You're right. You're right.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that. We'll get that fixed.
But we do have women. Is that what I'm hearing?
There's only 2 women, and we'd like to have more. Again, the trades, it's tough to find women in the trades, so there's some great opportunities there.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Could we go back up to page, let's see here, page 3, where the letter G, the black box,
Correct?
is that where the wall collapsed? Is that the area?
I believe the area where the wall collapsed is right along here, like between the black box and the cafeteria. Is that correct?
Because it indicated in the report, some of the reports we're reading, that it was part of the black box. That's why I'm
Yes.
asking.
Yes, that's where it is.
Okay, sir. Well, my concern is there, since that is such an intricate part of the building, and at some point, I would like, as was promised by Schmidt, that we would actually go see how a black box would operate. And that's a very fragile part of the building, and I'm hoping with the collapse that it will not affect that black box at all. So at any point, will we be able to go actually see
Be the same as Morton.
a facility that has a black box as was promised during the planning committees?
I'll have to bring that up with Schmidt and
Thank you.
Associates, but I can assure you.
Because that was a promise to the committee, because we had never seen one. Even in the photos, it was hard to realize it.
Right.
So at some point, we would like for Schmidt to honor that promise to the planning committee.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'll relay that message.
And one other question, let me see. Now, what does CMU, does it stand for anything? The letter CMU?
Cement masonry unit or concrete masonry
Okay,
unit.
because folks have asked me that, and I had no idea what it stood for.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid acronyms, MEP.
I understand,
and those,
it's
so
okay.
we'll get to that.
That's why we ask questions. Thank you, sir. And as far as your percentage says, your average minority participation, average Hammond residents, for your next report, could you sort of break that down into actual numbers? You know, you can have a percentage, but a percentage of what? You know, what number are you starting from? So you would actually have a number to report. You've done that before in your other reports. So I'm just asking for
So
a little...
break this down even more, Black, Hispanic, white, Hammond residents,
Okay. Oh, it's at the very end.
and women. We'll add women.
At the
Apologize
very
for that.
end, okay.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
does it relate back to the numbers that are on the
Does.
pages per
That's a
week?
summary of all those. Each month we'll give this as
So
a
the
summary.
percentage is on those numbers?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's the ending
Right.
numbers. Thank you very much. And I guess my other questions are to you, Mr. Miller. Where is the money coming from to furnish this new high school?
I'm sorry, where's the money coming from? What? I didn't hear the last part.
I'm sorry, to pay for the furnishings for the high school?
The actual furnishings, you mean like the desks and
The
everything?
desk and the
all that,
materials.
Cabinetry. That is built into the budget, correct?
I've never seen it in the budget.
Yeah, it's, if you take a look at
It's-
line
It's furniture.
218, line number 218 in the budget.
Yeah, second from the bottom, furniture and equipment.
And that's going to be for the entire school. $2.5 million, that's it. Is that that's what I'm seeing?
Correct.
That's what's budgeted.
That's what we budgeted for the $110 million school, or $90 million. The furnishings is 2.5. Okay, well, we'll see if that's going to be doable. And one other question. Have you all had an opportunity to speak to the office manager at Hammond High School to see what their needs might be in terms of the office? Have you had an opportunity to speak to them?
I have not.
Okay. That might be a good idea, you know, since they would like to know where their how their office.
Oh, are you talking about related to equipment?
Yes, sir.
That time will come. Normally, the loose equipment, Schmidt and Associates is handling that in-house with people who are professionals in the furniture side. A lot of that conversation in the planning and design stage, they talk about, but now it's time to, probably about maybe by the middle of next year, to start looking at that.
Well, I know they had talked to a lot of the other departments. They already know. They have already spoken to them, and
Right.
understanding they have not had an opportunity to share their desires or concerns. So it's always good to have it in advance and then, move forward.
Right, you're
Okay.
absolutely right. And
Since
I'm sure
everyone
they
else
will. Well, look, you look at August of 2021 to occupy the school. There's a lot of new products that could come out between now and then. So probably about 12 months before that, they really start zooming in on it,
Okay.
and then have enough time to furnish it in June. So
Now, when are the
hear
next
ya.
bids going out for the for this project?
pardon me.
The next bids, when are they going out?
The next
set of
bids, I believe, will be, if we look at the budget here, would be bid package number 3, which is the athletics and amenities. Looking at that probably early part of next year, February, around there. The idea is to get started on that next summer.
Well, the bids for the construction cleanup, has that gone out?
We have not. We're working.
That's based,
yeah.
I would think that would be the next, that's what we talked about at the seminar,
Right. The opportunity's there. That's,
So we have not decided on a date when the bid's going to go out?
we have
correct?
not.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, Mrs. Trustee White.
Okay, any other questions?
I just want to add, if you want to, if you do not know, you can always view the Black Box Theater at Morton High School and the Hammond Academy of Performing Arts, which a Black Box Theater is a smaller theater where they have smaller plays, like Theater in the Round. So you can contact Mr. Easton, the principal, and he could give you a tour of the Black Box Theater at Morton High School.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, one final question. Has there been any additional outreach from the last month within the city of Hammond?
I know we have a meeting set up. When is that, Vance? The end of this month, we have a meeting set up, but we continue to keep recruiting and trying to get people through the Indiana plan, following up on some of those seminars that we've had. And then with these meetings coming up in anticipation of the next bid packages, that's what we're hoping. And we have conversations with the contractors daily, probably, to get more manpower, look at opportunities.
I just want to add, it's looking great. It's looking
Yeah,
great.
beautiful building. It's going to be.
It's looking great. It's coming along very, very well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This brings us to our first period of public expression, which is on agenda items. We have 3 people signed up. First, we have Greg Erminger. Good evening.
Greg Erminger, 2046 Superior. Good evening, Superintendent Miller, President White, Board of Trustees. I'm wondering why we haven't made the announcement of what the new middle school, high school is going to be named. From the start of the process for the referendum, it was stated numerous of times that it would be a middle school / high school. The school city of Hammond released 2 info sheets on the referendum. Doc 1, voter support will enable the community and the school district to build a new middle school / high school. The second one.
Mr. Erminger, this really isn't an agenda item, so it's part of the second period of public expression.
Isn't it part of the high school?
Well, the high school project, but the naming, what you're saying, would really be in the second period of public expression.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, I've raised that question during their presentation every time. I just didn't this time because I'm getting tired of not getting an answer.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
mean,
raised it
it's
during this
appropriate,
point.
but
It's part of it. That is part of it.
Trustees,
I think it's part of the second.
second part?
Yes.
Second.
I-
You might as well hear it now than as opposed to, I mean, he's up here.
Well, you're signed up, or did you have something else you
I had
wanted to say?
something else.
Okay, then go ahead and reset the clock.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent Miller, President White, and Board
You
of
can just
Trustees.
continue on.
I'm wondering if why we haven't made the announcement of what the new middle school / high school will be named. From the start of the process of the referendum, it was stated numerous of times that it'll be a middle school / high school. The school city of Hammond released 2 info sheets on the referendum. The first one, the voter support will enable the community and the school district to build a new middle school / high school. The second document, where will this new school be built? The construction of the new facility will be on the site of the current Hammond High campus, and additionally, Eggers Middle School and Hammond High will be consolidated. That went out in 2017. 6 board reports that was issued in 2019 stated middle school / high school. The project timeline stated middle school / high school. The building committee planning schedule stated middle school / high school. The construction progress reports in 2019 stated the new middle school / high school. I do not know, or I don't understand what the holdup is on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Cindy Murphy.
Cindy Murphy, 6838 Colorado. I'm going to talk about Blueprint, which is on the agenda, but I want to add on how I got the overview. On board docs, starting with this board meeting, I went out to get the detailed agenda, And much to my surprise and delight, all the contracts are listed there. So you should put something on the School City Facebook page, like a did you know, and give them the link to board docs. That will quiet everybody down, because it's all out there now. And if anybody says that they should have the other backup material, no, they shouldn't. That's your executive content. Having the contracts out there and everything, being able to print off stuff so you can read it ahead of time before the board meeting is absolutely wonderful. So one of the things that Josh stated about Blueprint, I'm not here to say don't vote for Blueprint. I voted for Blueprint many times before. It's a fantastic program. I'm glad they went and sharpened their pencils so it doesn't cost as much as it did last year. JAG is on the agenda today too. It's another program that's with the Department of Workforce Development that helps children graduate and go on and have careers in there. But it goes back to the strategic plan, and Josh alluded to that. We need a mission, a vision, goals, and a strategic plan. Without that strategic plan, you still don't know where you're going. So the question is with this thing, are we going to try to increase the number of students in Blueprint each year? Or have we reached the point where we don't have enough money to increase it? That goes back to the strategic plan. Where do we want to put our money and get it out to the public and have the public let you know? Do we want to concentrate on raising our graduation rates, or do we want to do more interventions at the elementary? Without the strategic plan, the community doesn't know. So thank you all for adding this stuff on board docs. It's fantastic. I'm going to toot your horn tonight on Facebook for that. Your transparency just went up another level.
Thank you. Mr. Buck. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. The young man was speaking about the college-ready programs and everything. And college is fine. I'm all for it for the people that's ready to go to college. The problem I have with college is it's not all it's beefed up to be. You can get all this money, they'll loan you all this money to go to college, and you'll spend the rest of your life paying it back. Ask them when you graduate, ask them for a loan to open up a business and see if you get that money. So a lot of people out here with college degrees can't even find a job in that field. Can't pay back the loan, it'll take them forever to pay it back. So what I'm trying to say is we need to invest more money in trade. Sending our kids over to that trade, ACC. That's where we need to put our money. Let's be real where we live at. Our kids need trade skills. All of them not going, the majority of them are not going to college. But they do need a trade to say that they're certified in something. Because if you send them out in this real world without a piece of paper, look for crime to go up. It's going to happen. They're going to make babies, how they going to feed them? Sell drugs or become a stick-up man. Hopefully we can prepare them before they get in that real world. College is not for them all. I don't have a problem with college. Another thing about that wall falling, who's paying for that wall? The school city didn't cause it to fall. Why should we eat that? We should not be eating that. The company should be eating that, not us. It was they was constructing it. Whatever they done wrong, they should have ate it. Send it to their insurance if they'd have sent it on time.
We have insurance.
You have insurance on their project?
They do as well. I mean, the whole project is insured, and all of the trades companies that are on the site have their own insurance.
So whose insurance is it going to? The school cities or the contractor?
Well, we haven't received the final insurance report yet. That's why it hasn't been made public. But
okay, but we shouldn't have to eat it. And as far as the young man speaking about the high school, middle school, that's not what the people voted for. I'm a precinct commitment. I'm telling you, I saw what the machine said. Teachers' pay raise, high school. Said nothing about secondary, said nothing about middle school. I don't care what you printed up and sent out. That's not what that voting machine said. That voting machine said high school, and that's where our money should go, to a high school, not spending it with secondary and all of that. That money should go where it belongs, or the school city should be sued for using that money inappropriately.
Thank you. Unfinished business.
Trustee White.
Trustee Blake King.
Since the last school board meeting, I have literally been called, text, email. I can go to church and people stop me. Even in a funeral, I have been stopped and sent notices concerning Maywood Elementary School. I firmly believe that we are as strong as our weakest link. And Mr. Miller knows where I'm going with this because we had a long conversation with several of the teachers at after the public hearing. And we have so many unhappy folks at Maywood Elementary School, from transportation, from the janitor situation, from the lunchrooms, from eating in classrooms, from children who have to clean up behind themselves. I can go on and on and on, but I want. What I'm asking Trustee White and Mr. Miller, can we have a training session, or whatever you want to call it, to go into an executive session, have all parties involved, and sit down and find out why Maywood Elementary School is not functioning like the other elementary schools. From my vantage point, and from the vantage point of the parents and the folks that have stopped me continually, it's likened to our children at Maywood being treated like those children caged at the border. They are, and that's basically how folks are feeling.
Well,
I mean, it's not how I feel, Trustee White, it's what these folks have continually are telling me, and I've shared most of this with Mr. Miller. We got to come to a consensus. We have to do something. And can we have a training session where all parties involved who's making these decisions? I mean, the question is, why weren't some of these students transferred to Lincoln when you have a capacity, available capacity of 160 children? I don't understand it, why children are eating in classrooms. Make me understand that at this point. If everybody in the school district is eating in their classrooms and cleaning up behind themselves, it's not acceptable. But if this is going on at Maywood Elementary School, either dispel it up or dispel it down. We need to do something to get our parents satisfied, because you might not see them here, but the law says if we never see a parent at a school board meeting, a PTA meeting, those children, their children, are entitled to a quality education. We got it on our website. Every child has access to an equal education. Mr. Miller, the buck stops now. What are we going to do? All parties involved need to come together and make a decision. And that's what I'm requesting from this board this day. Otherwise, somebody's telling me that you just don't care.
Trustee Blake King, it doesn't qualify for an executive session, but what should happen is Superintendent Miller should meet with all the parties and get all the information, get the information that you've been given, and then it should be reported back to the board, and if necessary, then we have a public work session, but it doesn't qualify for an executive session. So the superintendent should start the process and then have a report for the board, and then we go on from there.
Well, explain this to me. What did you call the session we were all in when all the department heads were there and all the board members were there, and we were discussing how we were going to move forward?
That was a training session.
Well, this is a training session.
Yeah,
this could be called a training session, because evidently somebody needs to be trained how to get this situation corrected.
Well, I mean, and you're right, we should have a training session once the superintendent has the information to share with us, but I believe what I'm hearing is that he needs to meet with parents over at Maywood and teachers and gather all that data and then bring the administration together with the board to see how things can be changed to improve it.
I think the trustees, Mr. Miller, should allow the board to just go in there so we can see for ourselves.
It's under the,
Well, I'd be happy to take no more than 2 trustees at a time, but I've offered that before.
well, but I mean, we're overstepping what your job is. Your job is to run the district.
I mean, there are
so-
still boxes
Well,
in that school.
And I don't disagree with
Well,
anything
thank
that
you.
you're saying, but he needs to bring us back the information, and then we will take the next steps.
Well,
I agree.
I'll say this, Maywood School is, I know we are voted at large. Maywood School is at my back door. And you cannot make me believe, Trustee White, Trustee Mimala, Trustee Miller, or Trustee Candelier, that if a school in your backyard was having this much problems, the situation would not be resolved immediately. This is not the first time. This is not the second time. This is about the third or fourth time I have had to address this. And it's like you're testing my resolve and the resolve of the Maywood community.
Well,
How much more do you think these parents are going to take?
well, my question is, Trustee King, how come you're the only one that's hearing it and we're not hearing it?
Well, that's a good question. Why don't they call you? You should ask yourself that question, Trustee
Well,
Miller.
I'm just saying,
Mamala.
Okay,
we've
I'm
been
gonna
on this
call-
board for a long time,
Well,
and we've never
that
heard.
should that's a question
speaking
on
now.
you.
Excuse me.
I'm speaking now.
Well,
Excuse
speak
me.
on.
Excuse me.
I'm speaking.
Excuse
We've
me.
never heard.
Excuse me a second. I'm going to call order of the day to bring
You
us
don't
back
live in the
to
Maywood
agenda.
community.
I'm going to bring us back to the agenda.
please.
So Superintendent Miller, if you could get the information so that we can meet and with the board and get this resolved, please.
I will.
Thank you. Do you have any other unfinished business?
I didn't have any.
Okay. Board members, you have the minutes from the August 12th, 2019 special board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, I will accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Mamala.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the August 12th, 2019 special school board meeting as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from August 12th special board meeting indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
We have 4 ayes and 1 abstain. The minutes have been approved from August 12th. Next, you have the minutes from the August 12th executive session. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, I will accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes of the August 12th, 2019 executive session meeting as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from August 12th executive session indicate by aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
We have 4 ayes and 1 abstain. The minutes have been approved. Next, we have the minutes from the August 20th executive session. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, I will accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Mamala.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes of the August 20th, 2019 executive session as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
We have 4 ayes and 1 abstain. The minutes have been approved. The consent agenda.
Trustees, before I present the consent agenda, one of the items on the personnel report involves a a organizational restructuring is probably too strong of a word, but we've made some changes to the organizational chart. And Mr. Massey, could you pull that up, please, so the audience can see it? Essentially, we have been unable to find a qualified CFO, and we are reorganizing with Dr. Green to oversee operations. Ms. Myrick will stay overseeing academic affairs, but those that would have previously reported to Mr. Boone before he retired will now be reporting to Dr. Green. Dr. Green has done this in the past at 2 previous school corporations where she oversaw HR and finance, so she does have experience in it. And it is a cost-saving measure in addition to have only 2 people at the assistant superintendent level instead of 3. So it's not any pay difference for anyone, but it is reflected on the personnel report as a change in title only. All right, that said, trustees, I am recommending the approval of the consent agenda, items A through C.
Superintendent Miller, before I ask for a motion for the consent agenda, what other changes were made to this organizational chart, and was there a cost savings for the district?
Well, this is really the first major update to the organizational chart after we have done some of the RIFs over the summer. So you will no longer see a director of gifted and talented programs. You'll no longer see someone in the role of, what's the policy one?
Compliance.
Compliance officers,
So
thank you.
Were there were positions that you removed?
Yes, that we removed those.
What was the cost savings total for this reorganization from administration?
Around $400,000.
Okay.
Trustee White,
Trustee Blaking.
this is not the same identical organization plan that was presented to us.
Well, the previous plan, it essentially is, but the problem I had with the plan that you have right in front of you is it doesn't indicate
This is what was
hierarchy.
presented. No.
It doesn't indicate hierarchy very well, where this one does show who exactly reports to who.
But there's an addition under transportation that was not presented at the executive session.
That one has been there. So I just made this document accurate.
The reason I bring it out, had it been there, there would have been more additional discussion on my part. It's not, what I see here is not what was presented. And that's on the record.
Okay.
What was presented is not what is presented now.
This reflects the current reorganization, and I think in an intelligent way. This will be available on the school website too. If you go under district info, it'll have organizational charts, so you can peruse it as much as you'd like.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I do have a question. So the transportation supervisor, that was there before, it just wasn't represented on the previous chart?
Correct.
It wasn't an addition, it wasn't a change?
No, it's not a new position, it's not a
just,
change.
It didn't make the first printout, correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, so it's not.
Trustee White,
Trustee Blaking.
as you all know, previous to this executive session, there was quite a bit of conversation. And when I didn't see it, I didn't expect to see it ever. And now I see it. You know, when I take my time out to come and attend an executive session and discuss issues, and we leave there thinking one thing, and I come to a board meeting and seeing something entirely different, that bothers me. You know, my time is valuable.
Thank you. That's noted. Are there any other questions on the consent agenda?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Trustee
Blaking.
White, I would like to read into record. Board Policy, PO 166.1, Consent Agenda. A member of the board may request any item to be removed from the consent resolution and defer it for a specific action and more discussion. No vote of the board will be required to remove an item from the consent agenda. A single member's request shall cause it to be relocated as an action item eligible for discussion at a later date. I would like to take each item one by one, starting with the personnel.
Okay. Board members, you have on the consent agenda, item A, the personnel report. I will accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of item A, the personnel report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Further discussion.
Trustee Blaking.
Under, because this has been changed so many times, on page 5, Patrick O'Rourke, why is this showing up now as retirement, and the assignment, I'm not familiar with it at all. Can somebody explain it to me?
Why is it just showing now as a retirement? Dr. Green, do you mind coming up to the mic or Mr. Friel?
And with the title, does the current president of the Federation, will he have this title now?
President of the Hammond Teachers Federation?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, Pat O'Rourke was the previous president of the Hammond Teachers Federation. He was on unpaid leave of absence. He received no compensation, no monetary remuneration from this school board or the school corporation while he was president of the Hammond Teachers Federation. He was still on that unpaid leave of absence until such time as he actually got you a letter of retirement and you guys actually accept that. However, in the meantime, Lou Geekus was elected by the teachers to be the new president of the Hammond Teachers Federation, and he has been the president of the Hammond Teachers Federation, I believe, beginning like June 1st, I think is when he started. And he likewise is on an unpaid leave of absence. I don't know if that's been approved by the board or not.
It was.
I know you sent a letter to him to that effect, saying he would be on an unpaid leave of absence, receive no benefits or compensation from the school corporation or the school board. And that's basically it. The reason it's on the agenda today is because I guess Pat finally got his letter in.
And we cannot actually put them on the personnel report until we receive a written letter.
I got you. On page, on the same page, I would like to have under transfers. And another thing I don't understand, when we post a position and someone bids for it and get it, why is it considered a transfer?
Because we have to actually show that they're moving from one position to another.
Okay. The position of Dean of Students at Hammond High School, I want it pulled for further questions.
It's all right.
On page...
You're pulling it off the personnel report?
Yes.
For additional questions?
Yes,
Did
ma'am.
you submit those questions prior to the board meeting so we could have the answers?
This personnel report has changed so many times. This is the revised one.
But that's been on
But I
there.
didn't see it. I see it
It's
now.
already on the personnel report.
According to the board policy, on page 6,
On the personnel report. Was it
could you explain this when you talk about reassignments? The assistant principal, the two assistant principals that became principals. Now, while that job was posted, at the same time you had the assistant principal posted. When I saw that, I was confused. I said, either the principals quit or, we got ahead of ourselves. The position had not even been filled. You follow what I'm saying? And now the positions are filled. Now we're filling the principalship. So why did that happen?
They actually went through interview and they were selected as the principals for those schools. And the postings went up a day early, yes, but they were actually selected as the principals for those two schools.
So is that how we're going to do it in the future?
After interview,
So-
and there were several candidates interviewed, they were selected by a committee.
Okay. So we sort of jumped the gun.
Yes, the posting went up a day early, we'll admit that.
Well, it was confusing to me as a board member. I'm thinking Ms. Yanders might have quit, what had happened. If her position is now being posted, you understand why I would think that
truly
would?
do understand
Okay,
your
thank you.
confusion.
And then, so I understand now you got it as reassignments as opposed to new employment. So it's not new employment. And I guess one final question, when we interview folks and they don't get the position, are they notified?
Yes, Applitrack actually sends out a letter of notification that they did not receive the position.
And how soon does that go out?
It usually goes out after we have them board approved. So there is a little bit of a delay. So
Okay.
after board approval, then we can send out the letter saying they didn't get the position.
I think that was. Just give me one other. Okay, that's one final question. I see people are being reassigned, transferred, or whatever you call it, due to increased enrollment. What is that about?
If a school shows increased enrollment and we find that there's a grade that does not have increased enrollment and we have too many teachers, then it's a possibility that teacher may be shifted to a different grade. Also, they have the right to choose a different position if they have selected that position through voluntary transfer. So we have people that are moving to different positions. It happens.
And then, so that was the same thing for Mrs. Harrison at Maywood School. It said she was moved due to increase in enrollment.
What page are you on, please?
Oh, let me find it, because I just didn't understand this increase to enrollment. You see, let me see.
No.
Oh, it's on page 6.
Page 6, the
Yes, ma'am.
principal?
Yes.
Her school actually went from a level A or B to a level A because of her increased enrollment. And so that caused her to be designated a principal level A now.
Is that additional money?
Yes, it is.
So for the teachers, this is additional money as well?
The principal is manning the entire building.
Okay.
And so it's for the principal
But I mean,
due
if
to the
this
size
says.
of the building.
Okay, so if that says, and it's next to a teacher, it doesn't mean they got an increase in pay?
Not necessarily.
Oh, not necessarily. Okay. That sort of threw me. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have on the personnel report, we had a motion and a second, and then we had further discussion to pull one person off of the personnel report.
Yes.
And are you going to do that further discussion with,
We can discuss it right after we can discuss it what is legal, and then we can come back and vote on it.
okay, so board members, we have, we have a motion and a second for the personnel report as it was indicated. So I have to ask for a vote because I got a second on the personnel report as it was brought up. With further discussion, there is an amendment to that. So, according to the board policy, it can be taken off. So I will ask for approval of the personnel report with,
I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is, just because it's new ground, so according to the board policy, it was requesting that things be removed from the consent agenda. So is it really referring to like the entire personnel report or a single item on the personnel report? Because as she read it, I kind of understood it as the personnel report as a
the
whole,
agenda item.
not as a individual item on the agenda. I didn't read it to be that specific, but maybe I'm not understanding either. I'm just throwing that out there.
As I understand it, this happened my very first meeting. You can go back to the tape. And that's why I had to go dig up the policy, because I know we had done this before. So,
Well, and I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a confusing area because the consent agenda item is the personnel report, but there is an item on the personnel report that is asked to be pulled for further discussion, which a board member has the option to do. So,
Can we table it for the moment and then pick it
We
back
could
up
go
at
into
the...
executive session right now if
Right.
we wanted to.
And then come back and then just take the report as a whole instead of pushing it off a whole? I mean, I don't know what that does for you, Superintendent Miller, if we push off one item for 2 weeks or whatever.
Well, personnel report's a pretty big item to put off. It means all those people
yeah,
can't start working for us.
we cannot take the personnel report as such.
I meant like the single item, you know?
The single item.
according to the board policy, I can ask for any single item to be removed for further discussion.
I think the question is what Trustee Miller is bringing up is, does that refer to the granular level, like within an item? Can you pick out parts of within an item, or is it just the whole item or
Yes,
not?
yes,
And yes, we can, because I've done that before. I did it at the very first meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't here for that meeting, so
I know, but I
I'm just
was.
trying to
I was.
understand where we are.
I was.
But can I make a motion that we table it and go into an executive session?
No, I don't believe so, because the executive session has to be advertised as personnel.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, and then in further discussion, a board member asked to pull an item. So I will take a vote on approval of the personnel report with the removal of the item. All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so the personnel report was approved with the removal of one item for further discussion. And if we need to have an executive session sooner than 2 weeks, then we can
And that's
have-
what we did. We
then
did it
can
within
have-
2 days.
Then we can have an executive session and then a special board meeting. Okay, next we have the accounts payable report. I will accept a motion on the accounts payable report.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of item B, the accounts payable report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the accounts payable report. Is there any further discussion?
Discussion, at our last meeting, they had the summary. We didn't get that this time. Is that going to be once a month or once a year? Or Mr. Miller?
I will check on it. I'm not sure why, maybe it
Because
wasn't.
we had it last month, and I applauded you all
I
for
will
that, because it
compare it.
made more sense. We can
Okay.
understand the dollars. Thank you.
I mean, I know we've had a lot in our agendas, so if we notice that ahead of time so we can get it in here. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second for item B, the accounts payable. All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The accounts payable has been approved. Next, we have the payroll schedule. I will accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the payroll schedule and voucher as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the payroll schedule and voucher indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The payroll schedule and voucher have been approved. New business.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item A, the list of donations as presented in board docs.
Are there any additional questions on item A? I'll accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve board approval of donations as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The donations, item A, have been approved. Item B.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of all of the extracurricular purchases as represented in board docs.
Any questions on extracurricular? I will accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the extracurricular purchases as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving item B, extracurricular, indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The extracurricular have been approved.
Trustees, I am recommending of the contract between Morton High School and SCI Innovations, which is Eventlink. This is funded out of the extracurricular account for athletics and will provide a central calendar system for athletics for Morton.
Any additional questions? I'll accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Mamala.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the contract between Morton High School and SCI Innovations Eventlink as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving item C, the contract between Morton High School and SCI Innovations Eventlink, indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Item C has been approved. Item D.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of the contract between Clark and MTI Enterprises, which is for the licensing for the spring production of The Lion King Jr. Funding source is the ECA for the Drama Club.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the contract between Clark and MTI Enterprises Incorporated as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? Item D has been approved, the contract between Clark and MTI Enterprises.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item E, a partnership commitment between Northwest Indiana Workforce Board and School City Hammond for 1920. This represents the JAG program at Gavitt, Clark, and Hammond High. It was asked of me, what about Morton? They are aware of our desire to have it at all 4 high schools, but it is not funded by anything School City of Hammond. It's funded by federal money, and they don't have funds for it yet. But this is for JAG again at Hammond High, Clark, and Gavitt.
Any additional questions? I'll accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the partnership commitment between Northwest Indiana Workforce Board and School City of Hammond for the 2019-2020 school year as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? Item E has been approved, the contract between Northwest Indiana Workforce Board and School City of Hammond. Item F.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item F, a contract with Fulcrum Education Solutions, LLC, for professional development for our Blueprint program. This is paid out of Title IIA grant to provide training for the teachers that work in the Blueprint program that Mr. Long was describing earlier.
Trustee Blake King.
Madam President, I make a motion that we accept the approval of contract with Fulcrum Education Solutions, LLC, for professional development.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Item F has been approved, the contract with Fulcrum Education Solutions, LLC.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item G, an updated memorandum of understanding between the Hammond Education Foundation and School City of Hammond, specifically for the Blueprint program.
Any additional questions? I'll accept a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the updated Hammond Education Foundation / School City of Hammond Blueprint Memorandum of Understanding as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? Item G has been approved, the Hammond Education Foundation Blueprint School City of Hammond Memorandum of Understanding.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of our 2019 Title II Part A grant application. Title II primarily goes to teacher professional development.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve item H, approval of FFY 2019 Title II Part A grant application as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The fiscal year 2019 Title II grant application has been approved.
Trustees, I'm recommending the approval of item I, a contract for services with Rashada Moore Morris for the 2019-20 school year to continue to be the parent liaison and advocate at Hammond High School.
I will accept a motion.
Madam President, I make
Trustee
a motion
Blakey.
that for the approval of contract for services with Rashada Moore Morris for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. And opposed? The ayes have it. Item I, the contract for services with Rashada Moore Morris for the 1920 school year has been approved.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item J, our non-English speaking program NESP grant. It's in the amount of $600,000, and it provides English learners and emergent bilingual students instruction to improve their English language proficiency to over 1,600 students in School City of Hammond.
Any additional questions? I'll accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Candelaria.
I would like to make a motion for approval of non-English speaking program NESP grant as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? Item J, the contract for the non-English speaking program NESP grant has been approved.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item K, the Title III federal grant for language instruction for limited English proficient and immigrant students. I should have mentioned item J is state funded, where item K is federal money, but they go to the same purpose.
Any additional questions? I will accept a motion.
Madam President,
Trustee Mamala.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the Title III federal grant, language instruction for limited English proficient and immigrant students as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Item K, Title III federal grant for language instruction has been approved.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item L, the purchase of business textbooks for our 4 high schools. As you might recall from presentation in previous year, we are making sure that every student can fulfill the graduation pathways by becoming a CT concentrator, and these are textbooks to help fulfill that requirement.
And they can take them home, correct?
We've been buying class sets, so they can check them out, but no, we don't assign them to students individually.
Thank you.
Will accept a motion.
Madam President, I make a motion that we purchase of business textbooks for our entrepreneurship and business essentials program as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We have approved item L, the business textbooks.
Trustees, I am recommending of the approval of item M, the contract for L&R Innovative Solutions. They are our technical consultant for the Lilly Grant, which is required by the Lilly Grant and paid out of the Lilly Grant.
Madam President,
Trustee
I make a
Blakey.
motion for the approval of contract for L&R Innovative Solutions, LLC.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item M, the contract for L&R Innovation Solutions LLC has been approved. Upcoming board meetings. We have a public work session this Thursday, September 5th at 5:30.
Trustee White,
Trustee Blaking.
Can Mr. Miller explain what that workshop is all about?
Sure. Be happy to. We have two items that we're going to present to the board and the public on Thursday. The first is a proposed partnership with The Crossing. The Crossing specializes in dealing with students who have dropped out of high school, who are not yet like 18, so young students, and students who are facing expulsion. So some of the most challenging students that we have, and it fills a gap in our services right now. The second thing that we'll be presenting is, you may have heard that on tomorrow, actually Wednesday, the state will unembargo the results on the iLearn test. So on Thursday, we will be presenting to the board and the public the results of the iLearn test for School City of Hammond.
Thank you.
Do we need an executive session?
Sounds like we do.
Is everyone available on September 9th, Monday, for an executive session? 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay, executive session. Barbara, please advertise that as personnel. Okay, and then the second school board meeting in September is the 17th, and that is at 6 p.m. here at the Administration Center.
And September the 9th is what specifically?
9th is personnel and executive
Personnel,
session.
yeah, okay. But that's already scheduled.
I think we need to advertise a special meeting.
Not for the 9th.
I mean, I'm just saying I had that on my calendar. The 9th.
Okay.
We already knew that.
We didn't have an executive session on the 9th.
I know we did. I'm saying September 9th already.
Yeah, you already had it
Already
for
had
the
it.
meeting that we're having with the state.
Right, yeah.
But this is an executive session at 5:30 on your personnel issue.
Oh, okay. We're going to do, double whammy. I got you.
And then I think we probably need to advertise a special meeting at
Got you. Okay.
6 o'clock,
Same day.
same day.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. That brings us to our second period of public expression, which are on general items. First, we have Cindy Murphy.
Cindy Murphy, 6838 Colorado. I want to go back to the presentation on the new school building that was earlier. As it was pointed out, $3.225 million has been put aside for athletic and amenities. We still don't have a track with the football field. If you guys cannot work out what you need with the city, I know the plan B is to keep it at Eggers, but that needs the same amenities as the rest of the high schools. You need a stadium, you need a locker room, you need a concession area, and you need lights. And as a taxpayer, I think that's a waste of money, but in urban areas, you cannot always get the property you need. And sometimes you have to do those. So I hope before you even get to these contracts, you need to come back to the public and let us know, what are you going to do about a track? Because the track that has been in the plan is unconscionable. Nowhere else in this city would they put up with a track without those facilities. Number two, the meeting after the last meeting, so we had the meeting on collective bargaining, but the meeting after that was more interesting because teachers were able to speak off the record. And as alluded to, okay, but I'm gonna get to that point. So they talked about duct tape get desks, and I'm sitting back, duct tape desks? But it's not just Maywood. So there's a perception that some things are happening in certain areas. A Harding teacher piped up, we have the same duct tape desks over at Harding. So when you start to put this data together, you need to do the whole district because you have certain areas where you're just starting to get to things. And the perception is one area, it's everywhere. Like when we were dealing with the heat last year, there were schools complaining that it got to 78 degrees. And I said, please don't tell the people at Morton High School in Lafayette that your school only got to 78 degrees because they're at 100. So it's a perception, and that's part of strategic planning. Again, how are we going to use those resources? If you're going to go fix desks at Maywood, well, we should be looking at the other school too, and getting those on the plans. The other concern was custodians. Again, perception. So a couple years ago on the, I gotta hurry up, list for parents to put was Clorox wipes. And members of the board were quite upset about that, because the question was, aren't our custodians cleaning the desks at night? And so therefore they should not have to do Clorox wipe. So that perception is now back out there again. Is that necessary? Are the custodians going to get the desks clean? And the last thing is, we hear tonight about 400,000 cuts in administration. How close are you to your goals? I know the original goal was 634,000 in administration. ADM day's coming up. It'd be nice to get something coming back to see where you're at.
Thank you.
Trustee White, I would like to make a comment to that. It's not so much perception, it is data-based. We have a document with the breakdown where all the monies were going per school. I've been asking, Ms. Miller, you keep forgetting, to put it on the agenda so the public can see. It's not perception. There is a document indicating where we're spending all of these dollars. And when you see that document, you will understand what I'm talking about. I thought I had it, I don't. But Mr. Miller, please, at our next board meeting, I've been asking this for 4 board meetings, to share this with the public, because we bid it out over $287,000 worth of work, which included carpet to various schools. And you will see what schools actually got the carpet, what schools actually got this, and that. We have that, and we have not been able to present it to the public. So it's not perception, it's documented.
Thank you. Mr. Buck?
Hello again.
Good evening again.
And you mentioned that carpet. Maywood has duct tape on that carpet. I'm sure you all probably saw the pictures. Maywood does need cleaning. They need more janitors. Or, I mean, only way I could see them fighting if you all don't give them more janitors is the teachers walk out. The parents keep their kids at home. Don't send them in that nasty, infested building, because that's what's going to happen soon as flu season hits. Kids going to get sick, going to hospitals. The school board not going to pay that bill, but you caused it because you're not putting the manpower in those schools that needs to be in those schools to clean those buildings. 3 days last week, 2 of the maintenance people called off. That left 1 to clean that building for 3 days. I talked to a janitor last night. He said when that happens, their job is just to dump the garbage. Not wipe anything, just make sure the garbage is dumped. So that means all those nasty germs, when you know kids wiping it all on the desk, it's still there. So we need to get more janitors over at Maywood. And you said talk to the parents, set a parent meeting at Maywood, Mr. Miller, so the parents can come out. And you say that, Ms. Mamala, you said you don't hear it. Why you all don't hear it? You don't live in our community. That's why you don't hear it. If you lived in our community, you would hear it, but you don't live there, so that's why you don't hear it.
I disagree.
Well, but whatever. Then when we get the mice in the classroom from kids eating in classrooms and the janitors are not there to vacuum it up, we're gonna have mice, roaches. I mean, they come where they can eat. I mean, if you're gonna supply it for them, they're gonna be there. So we need to make sure that those janitors are over there at Maywood getting their jobs done. So I just hope that you all think of that, because flu season is right around the corner.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Next, we have Mr. Erminger.
Hello.
Hello.
I want to address the rumors going around about Clark closing. Please remember, when you asked the Robertsdale residents to vote for the referendum, it was told that there'll be no school closings. Teachers, administrators, residents went door to door convincing the taxpayers to vote yes for the referendum, and Robertsdale is the highest tax bracket in the city, and we got hit most with the increase in taxes. There's a safety factor. Clark to Central Hammond, there's 6 sets of tracks. We don't want that to happen. Please remember the info the board put out stating the new high school, middle school would be Eggers and Hammond High combined. Again, went out in 2017. The official groundbreaking of the new middle school, high school, it was stated that it would be Eggers and Hammond High consolidated. A press release that went out in May 2019 stated middle school, high school. Clark is growing and excelling. It's one of the top test score schools in the city. It was voted top school by U.S. News and World Report, and I believe there's a plaque on the back wall in this room that states that. It is in the top half of schools in the state out of 756. Students continue to excel in the classroom, receiving scholarships to the finest schools in the country. University of Notre Dame, Duke University, Purdue University, Indiana University, Bowling Green, and so forth. We have teachers at Clark High School that are building their own desk in their classrooms to maximize the space so the kids could do projects and on-hand demonstrations so they can excel. Clark is everything that a school board would want in the school. They continue to fight, grow, and excel when they still get ignored and neglected. This summer, the football field house went over a month without plumbing or electricity. We requested 2 porta potties and never got heard. We had a football team, a boys soccer team, and a girls soccer team using 1 porta potty. No water access in 90 to 95 degree weather. We had to bring the water from the outside. We run out, coaches had to leave the team and go get more water and bring it back. Players going into the dark room, building, to put their equipment away because there's no electricity. Nobody did anything to get lights. When the plumbing wasn't fixed and the lights were out, coaches and players had to use their cell phones to get inside the building and use the bathroom.
Armiger.
School board needs to stand by what they promised the residents
Thank you.
and taxpayers, no school closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have reports from the superintendent.
So this past Thursday, we were able to welcome Dr. Jennifer McCormick, the State Superintendent of Education, into Hammond. For those of you who didn't get to be a direct part of it, we were able to go to Irving, and she was able to sit in on 3 of our dual language immersion classrooms. It was fun to see her too. Like as soon as she walked in the room, she jumped right in with the kids and the students and interacted with them. As I mentioned in my newsletter today, she told me privately that it was reaffirming to her soul. So it was very positive. We came back to the Career Center. She heard from some students, and then we did a live stream Q&A. If you haven't caught the Q&A, I would recommend it. She talks about iLearn. She talks about teacher compensation. Talks about a lot of really important things that are affecting education right now, and including the wisdom to having an appointed versus an elected state superintendent of education. But check it out on our School City YouTube page if you haven't seen it yet. But I would like to publicly thank her for coming, and hopefully we can have her back again soon. The second thing I'd like to mention is this Friday from 5 to 9, we are celebrating Hammond Tech / the ACC's 100th anniversary. So as many people, especially if you're alumni and you hear about this, we'd love to have you come out. It is kind of an open house format. You don't have to be there for 4 hours. But those of you who know me know that a large part of my career was in that building. I love that school. It's As somebody was mentioning today, the need for more career and technical education, I would completely affirm that, and that's what that school has done for 100 years. It hasn't always been in that location. That location opened in 1950, but the original Hammond Tech opened in 1919. So that's why we're celebrating the 100th anniversary this year. So hopefully I'll be there. I know some of the trustees plan on being there, so hopefully we'll see you there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports from board members.
Trustee White.
Trustee
Miller,
King.
At the ACC celebration, people are asking me, are we going to be dancing or just what's going on? Nobody seems to know. It's all over Facebook, and they want to know what's going to happen.
I haven't been directly involved in the planning with it. I do know they're going to have all the classrooms open. So for people who want to come through and see their old classroom or see what the facility looks like, there's going to be some presentations too from some alumni. They have a lot of memorabilia out and around. We even have the old Hammond Vocational School that used to be on the front of the building. That was saved in storage. We've got that out on the stage.
You're going to give these out?
Yep, we're going to have a. Thank you. We have a program we've printed about Hammond Tech. It is quite interesting. They've got a picture of the original location here, and I'd just like to tell people this because it's just so amazing that when they moved the original Hammond Tech from downtown over to Russell Street, they actually picked up the building and moved it with horses. And they relocated the entire building by moving it with horses. So isn't that cool? But part of the history of Hammond Tech. But yes, hope to see everybody out this Friday.
Very good.
Trustee Blake King, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to state I did have the opportunity to attend two awesome open houses, Hammond High School and Eggers. They were both well attended, and the programs they had for the children were outstanding. And I would like to congratulate Lincoln Elementary School, PTSA. They have 221 PTSA members and counting. Isn't that amazing? So to the other schools, we got a lot of catching up to do. I thought that was amazing, to the principal and her staff for doing that. And I know everyone saw the article in the Times, Northwest Indiana leaders, they raised over $75,000 for our students, East Chicago and Hammond, for scholarships. That was a Lakeshore Chamber and that group, and I think that is awesome when our stakeholders come out and help us, because we certainly know we need additional scholarship money for our kids, and they should be applauded. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
So I'm on the chamber board, and essentially what this is they wanted to honor the work that Cal Bellamy and Frank Van Til have done over their careers with this community. So they fundraised for leadership development scholarships, where essentially we're going to be sending students down to a leadership camp in Indianapolis when they're sophomores, so they can still have an impact while they're in high school, rather than wait till they're a senior or something like that. And so the scholarship will be self-funding, so they'll be able to continue to send students to the leadership development camp through this program.
Thank you. And finally, our aerobics team was at the Hammond High School open house, and they're still looking for corporate sponsors. If we're going to keep this incredible team together, we need to help them find some funding. And so to all of our listeners out there, if you know anybody want to help School City of Hammond robotics team, we need your money. All of our corporate people out here, we need your money to keep this team alive. So contact April Brown O'Brien, and she certainly will take any amount of check that you might have. Go Team Aerobics, robotics. Thank you. Those are my reports.
Thank you. Any other board members? No. Okay. I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much for coming out. Be safe going home.